All right, good afternoon. I'd like to call the December 21st, 2021 Planning Commission meeting to order. So request staff confirmation. Kansas Open Meeting Act required notice has been properly provided.
I can confirm that the packet was posted and the required notice of the meeting was met.
Thank you. And we'll do roll call.
Thank you, Chair. Commissioner Gilmore, Commissioner Mike Sell.
Here.
Commissioner Linkowitz.
Here.
Commissioner Jones.
Here.
Commissioner Bernhardt.
Here.
Commissioner Waters.
Here.
Vice Chair Olson.
Here.
So we have 6 members of the body present and in attendance, and that gives us a quorum to conduct today's business.
Okay, so we'll move on to approval of minutes from the December 7th meeting.
I move the December 7th meeting minutes be approved.
I'll second. Go ahead.
Okay. I'll second that. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Minutes have been approved. So we move to new business.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We do not have a representative here present or on Zoom. I think that could be partially staff's fault because we had indicated to the applicant that all the leftover items from the preliminary plat had been resolved and that staff was recommending approval of the final plat as submitted. I don't know if that may have led the applicant to believe that there were no issues, that they did not need to appear. So that's a discretionary item for the commission. The commission's policy is not to take action unless the applicant is represented. But we can move forward with our report and let's just see if there's any questions that the commission feels needs the applicant present to address. But we provided you a little bit of background on the South 9th Corridor study and the things that were involved out there. That was mostly triggered by the announcement in 1999 that Long MacArthur Ford was going to relocate from downtown to South 9th Street, and the city and the county were no way ready for that. So there were a number of utility improvements and things related to South 9th Street that had to be put in place, and that all occurred in 1999. And so this particular parcel that we're discussing this afternoon was at that time known as the Russell Tract. It was annexed into the city at that time. It was given an agricultural designation, so it was eligible for an agricultural deferral on the utility assessments. Those assessments were deferred until 2016, and there's 10 more payments left to go, or 10 more years of payments. Mike and Doris Money and Marshall Family Enterprises are the current co-owners of this property. They filed applications to request approval of a zoning change and preliminary plat approval. This commission recommended approval of the zoning change. The city commission approved a zoning change on first reading subject to final platting of the property, and you also reviewed a preliminary plat at your September 21st meeting. The primary changes from that preliminary plat are the total number of lots was reduced from 8 to 5 platted lots, with the rear area being consolidated into a single lot. And the rear lot was modified so it had frontage and direct access to 9th Street. I don't know if you could call that up, Allison, and get that layout on the screen. So this is the revised final plat. And so we have the lots out, these 4 lots with frontage on Waterwell and 9th Street, and then the back lot's been modified, so this is part of the lot and has its own independent frontage and direct access to 9th Street. And then we have a expanded drainage easement here, and this would be an access easement for shared access and also a corridor for utilities. In 2016, the city subdivision regulations were amended and required the Planning Commission to look at what's called the direct access perimeter street, the street that's providing access to the subdivision. In this case, it's South 9th Street. And this plat has 2 street connections to South 9th Street. And the good news is that South 9th Street has been improved to full city standards abutting this subdivision, so there's no further improvements needed to serve the development of this site. As we noted, this has 2 potential access points. One is the north 50-foot shared drive, and then a single access point that would be located within this break and access. So we have 424 feet of frontage on South 9th, 700 plus feet of frontage on Waterwell. There's 2 curb cuts proposed within that location. Part of the reason for that is we don't have a specific development plan for the front lots at this time. So at a time that a site plan is submitted for the lot fronting on 9th Street, then that site plan would show the proposed location of a single well-placed curb cut that would be located somewhere within that opening. There's no public or private streets proposed. Everything on this in terms of improvements would be private. When the right-of-way was acquired by KDOT, they purchased restricted access from the abutting property owners, and so access is restricted everywhere else except for those 2 openings. We don't have to worry about street names. There's no public or private streets. All of the proposed lots now have access and frontage on a street. All of the lots meet the minimum lot size for the corridor overlay district. There are water and sewer utilities at the doorstep. There will be a need to loop those lines to provide internal connections and also for water to provide 2 sources of flow. Those extensions would be the owner's responsibility, but they could be financed through the use of special assessment financing if the owner chooses. We have Evergy utility lines in place and Kansas Gas Service lines in place on South 9th Street. As to drainage, not every issue has been resolved, but you do have a letter in there from the city engineer, and so while not approving the final drainage plan and drainage pond design, the city engineer indicates that if the Planning Commission is agreeable that the issues remaining on drainage can be resolved at the building permit stage when we have building footprints and site development plans are actually known. It's a little difficult to address drainage, and we don't know if we're going to get a large surface parking lot or some other form of development. And so those items would be deferred till there's an actual building permit submitted and we have known plans. There's no plan to dedicate any additional right-of-way for 9th Street or South Waterwell. The restricted access is going to be retained except for those 2 openings. They have provided shared access and utility easements and drainage easements on the plat as requested. And so the primary public improvements that would be needed to make this property developable would be extension of internal public water lines for water service and fire protection, and internal extensions of sanitary sewer lines, and possibly the expansion or the modification of the Long MacArthur detention pond. That remains to be seen. Aside from the existing special assessments for utilities, there would only be special assessments or fees associated if the property owner chose to try to finance the water and sewer improvements with special assessments. So all of the items that were left over from the preliminary plat have been satisfactorily resolved, and so this afternoon you could approve the proposed final plat of the home addition, subject to any conditions you think are appropriate. You could recommend that this item be postponed, allow the applicant or staff to provide additional information, or allow revisions to be made to the final plat drawing or drainage plan. You could vote to deny the proposed final plat if you find that it doesn't conform with the city's subdivision regulations. Staff's recommendation would be to approve the drawing that you see on the screen as submitted with the conditions that we've outlined on page 11 and 12. And I think probably the most significant one is just condition number 3, that at the time that we're ready for actual development and construction, that there would need to be a revised and updated drainage study at that time based on what's actually being proposed on the site. So with that, staff would be open to any questions you have about the final plat layout.
Questions for staff? Okay. At this point, then, we'd hear from the applicant.
Good afternoon. Merry Christmas. Jeff Mace, Compro Realty, 157 South 7th, on behalf of the applicant. I don't really have anything, if just standing for any questions that you may have. I'd like to thank staff, as usual. This was a kind of a different deal because we didn't have anything set in stone to talk about. We'd appreciate your deferring the drainage question so that we can know what we're draining, how much we're draining. That's the whole basis of that. We could have done all the design, and we came to terms with staff that it'd be better, given the fact that it's planned development anyway, it's coming back in front of you. So if there's any questions of me, I'm happy to address them. Otherwise, we appreciate all your time, and Merry Christmas.
Okay. Any questions from staff? Did you have an opportunity to look through the staff recommendations in the packet, and you guys are fine with everything? Okay. All right. Doesn't appear to be any questions. Thank you for.
Thank you, guys.
Okay. We'll take it to comments by public. Is there anybody on Zoom?
No, there is nobody in the waiting room.
Okay, so we're going to close public comment and bring it back to the commission for discussion. Comments? Thoughts? I think that this is one that's probably pretty easy. We've seen it enough times going through, and I think we've looked at it during those time frames. My recommendation would be to approve, but since I'm chairing today, I don't want to do that.
I'll motion that we approve application P21-2A filed by Home Real Estate LLC, requested approval of final plat of a 5-lot subdivision of a 9.4 acre tract of land located at the northwest corner of Waterwell Road and South 9th Street to be platted and known as the home addition.
Okay.
I'll second that.
And then is that with the recommendations on page 11 and 12?
Yes.
7.
Okay.
Sorry, I should have clarified that.
Okay. So we have a motion and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. So it carries 6-0.
Excuse me, can you please clarify who the second was?
Motion by Mr. Linkwood, second by Mike Sell.
Thank you very much.
Yep, thank you. We may get out of here in record time. Well, we have to do the whole review thing.
Yeah, I think, yeah, guess we'll see.
Thank you all again.
Thank you.
Merry Christmas.
Okay, so that takes us to, oh, actually, 3.2.
We have 3.2, and I'll, as part of your Kansas statutory responsibilities of the Planning Commission. One thing the Planning Commission is supposed to do is review major projects proposed in the capital improvement program of the city and make a recommendation to the city commission as to whether you think those plans are consistent with the city's comprehensive plan. And the city really didn't do any major projects in 2020 because of COVID, with concerns about revenue, with concerns about staffing. So a lot of things from 2020 were pushed into 2021, which kind of made the 2022 plan not very ambitious, except for continuing things that were ongoing. And so the way we've broken this down is into ongoing projects. That's things that happen every year, and every year there's an allocation of funds to go in and look at older neighborhoods and locations where the city has older cast iron water lines, and going in and replacing those. And so there's a lot of years it's going to take to take the 228 miles of cast iron pipe and convert it over, but it's being done gradually in each year. And then each year there's a set of funds set aside for resurfacing streets around the community. Then there's an annual allocation for hike and bike trails, and it was indicated that at the current rate, all the items on the master plan would be complete by 2025. And so probably one of the items in 2022, the city has a hike and bike master plan that was reviewed, and the recommendations for the routing and the priority was made by the Planning Commission. And so we would probably bring that back just for a refresher of where we are on that. Two things that are ongoing is, if you've been on Markley Road, you can see that there is a hike bike trail being formed up along the east side of Markley Road. As the Wheatland Valley subdivision develops to the north of Magnolia Hills, then that will continue on to try to get it up to connect with the Berkeley Family Recreation Area. And then the other hike bike trail, I have learned that although we received a KDOT grant, there were a number of strings attached that the City Commission did not approve of, so we declined to take the KDOT grant. But the Friends of the River and the city are funding the first phase of a riverside or river channel hike bike path that'll start at South Ohio and curl around behind the YMCA. So that will be phase one, or a demonstration of that trail. And so along those lines, we've had some questions from commissioners wanting an update on the river renewal project. So I've put at your place there a report that went to the City Commission last night, and in that report, talking with Martha Tasker, the Director of Utilities, she said everything the Planning Commission might want to know as far as dates and steps and things would be in that report. So what occurred last night was there were two design options that were going to be subject to an environmental review. One was just basically to have a straight line channel that would carry water. The other one was to have a channel that would be excavated at certain points where there would be pools and ripples, so that the pools would be places for sediment. They would be a little wider, a little deeper. And so the City Commission indicated to the Corps of Engineers that they preferred the pool and ripple design. And so that was the purpose of that. But outlined in those reports there are just some date milestones. And the good news about that is that there is potential for $10 million in Army Corps of Engineers funding for that project that wasn't known or available earlier. So the Corps has agreed to do an environmental assessment, and when they get done with that, we'll have an agreement in place with the Corps and hopefully a funding agreement that will allow steps to move forward. So what you see in the capital improvement program is just part of that. You're looking at a total of a $27 million project, but there's a very good chance that 10 million of that would be done from the Corps of Engineers. And so right now we're still in the design of in-channel improvements and some other things. No one's ready to go out and start excavating, although there was a contract approved for some tree removal to make way for the hike-bike path over there by the Y fields. So, and then the only new project, and it's just for design only, but it's looking into the feasibility of relocating Fire Station Number 4 from Marymount and Crawford to Markley Road in Crawford. And so that's the only real new project for 2022. So if you've reviewed that list and you agree that those public facility and public utility projects are located in existing service areas of the city, we're not going in a direction that's contrary to our plan, then a motion should be made to approve and endorse the proposed capital improvement program project list. If any commissioners want to provide comments to the city commission about any particular projects it believes are especially important to the growth and development of the city, this would be a time to do that as well. So what you have in the other piece is just there are all kinds of future projects and projects identified as but unfunded, and so there's a number of things in there. But if you are in agreement that the street and utility line renovations and looking at the better expanded fire station and the river renewal are consistent with our comprehensive plan, then a motion to report to the city commission that you endorse those projects would be in order, and any comments you want to make about individual projects as well.
Hey, Dean, the parks improvement, does that include maintenance, or is that just additional for improvements only?
That is for improvements only, not
Okay.
maintenance. The maintenance would be in their general operating budget. The capital improvements is actual improvements, whether it's shelter houses or other amenities that would go in particular parks.
Okay. And one more question on the, I don't know if you were given details or not, though. What is all included in the design for the relocation of number 4 fire station?
They would be taking quotes from an architectural firm, and they would essentially be looking at square footages, looking at the various living quarters, size of apparatus bays, number of apparatus bays, any things that are missing or too small from the current fire station, probably also looking to the improvements that were made at Station 1. And so basically they would be designing and coming up with cost estimates to say for X dollars, we can get a station with 4 bays that's X square feet. For Y dollars, you could get a station that's got 3 bays with Y square feet. So it's really to look at the feasibility and the cost, and what it would take in terms of a building footprint and fitting a facility on that site. So it's going to be a preliminary design of what features are needed in a updated, expanded fire station.
And that relocation's to the southeast corner on Crawford and Merkley?
Yes,
So is that right over there by the ball field then?
it'd be on the ball field side, not the golf course side. And I don't know how, it might be 20 years old, but there was a fire station location study that was done about 20 years ago, and it was partially the tightness of the site, partially the growth pattern, and at the time there was no correct or connection you have with Cedar Ridge Drive in Marymount, but it was looked at that the Markley Road location provided a better location for future growth or expansion as the city might grow east or southeast. And so that, it was a combination of looking at shifting the location as well as the fact that it was a fairly tight site over there that was built in the 1960s and is not real large or spacious.
Any other questions or comments?
I'd like to comment on the hike and bike trails. I think we're doing a really good job, and I'm out there a lot, and I see people using them. I see people who aren't fitness nuts using them, just out enjoying the space and stuff, and I think the city's doing a great job. It's, for cities of our size, it seems like we're maybe a little bit on the forefront of that. It's maybe not the best, but it's getting there, and it's good to see people use them. It's good to see the city acknowledge that that's an important avenue.
Yeah, and you can't build a continuous network all at once, but as you build segments and then plan for connectivity, you can start to build a system. But there's, along East Magnolia and South Ohio and then Schilling Road, there's a pretty good segment right there that you can use as much of as you want to.
Are there any plans to continue up Magnolia, or is it probably not feasible?
Well, I think the primary obstacle, and there's been a lot of discussion, I think we'll probably end up with the bridge instead of Saline County. Right now it's their bridge, but I think it's going to end up. And so what will need to happen is that bridge will likely need to be replaced, and then as part of that bridge replacement, you would provide a place for an enlarged sidewalk or bike path beside the roadway. Right now, the bridge is too narrow.
Yeah.
You can't, it's,
There's a lot of creative ways to do that, too. I mean, there's, we've seen places where they have underpasses and things for hike and bike traffic. And,
yeah. One of, it's a choice, and there's costs, and there's other considerations. One of our challenges that we have with the river project and hike and bike paths in general is that, for instance, at Ohio Street, there's not a bridge over the old Smoky Hill River. It's a culvert. And so where you have bridges, you can usually run a hike bike trail underneath the bridge and underneath the roadway. Well, right now, because it's a culvert, to go from the east side to the west side of Ohio Street, you've got to cross Ohio Street because of the culvert. So there's, that's just choices that get made. But if you start thinking about hike and bike at the time you're doing bridge replacements or culvert replacements, then you can build that into it. So the good news is if the Magnolia Road Bridge gets replaced, it's going to be replaced with something that would accommodate hikers and bicyclists in addition to just road traffic. But right now, if you ride your bike or try to jog across that bridge, you're taking your life in your hands.
It takes planning to get across there, I guarantee.
It's dicey.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
But we will in 2022 kind of give you an update on what segments have been completed, what segments remain to be completed on the hike and bike trail information.
Okay. So do we have a motion for approval of 3.2?
I'd make that motion with the,
Just that you're finding these projects to be in conformance with our comprehensive plan.
yes,
Okay.
CIP projects.
Okay. Second?
Second.
Okay. So it's been motioned and seconded.
Who had that second? Mr. Jones?
Mr. Jones, all in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? That carries. So moves us to unfinished or other business.
We're going to send a reminder notice out to you. The way that agenda items are falling, we will not have a scheduled meeting on January 4th due to lack of items, but we will meet on Tuesday, the 18th. And by that time, Mr. Lenkowitz will be a new city commissioner and not on the planning commission anymore, so this will be his last meeting, and we certainly appreciate his service to the planning commission. Hopefully he learned some things that he can take with him as he goes to the city commission. But we will search to see if people have submitted expressions of interest and try to get Mr. Lenkowitz's position filled. I will say, and we don't have all the timing down, but city staff continues to have meetings with people who've got ideas and investments to try to address housing needs in the community. And maybe the first one that might come before you in 2022, there's a property, if you're familiar with Foxborough Drive, that dead ends north of Schilling Road, and there's a field there just to the north of it. Well, when the Menards project went in, the city put in a looped network of water and sewer lines that tied all the way back to Centennial Road. So basically that area is served, and so we have a proposal to put a subdivision there. The challenge there is access, and the plan they've come up with is cooperation with the Salina Airport Authority to have a street connection over to Centennial Road. And so that might be the first subdivision that would come before the commission in 2022, but we've had a number of meetings with people who've been looking at our 2022 Planning Commission schedule. So I think that in the first quarter of 2022, the Planning Commission may have a number of residential projects that will be proposed and coming before you. Can't tell you the exact timing of those, but people that are ready, willing to move forward with providing housing products and opportunities in locations that we haven't seen before. But as for any new business, that will have to wait till the 18th of January. We'll have an annual report for you at that meeting.
I'd like to thank Mr. Linkowitz also. Appreciate your time, and it's been a pleasure.
It's mutual. Just kind of an overall comment about the experience. I've learned a lot. It's been I was a little apprehensive when I came in the first year, about the time component to it, and it's one of the best things I've done. I just feel like I've learned a lot. It feels good to be part of what's going on in the city and be productive, and I encourage anybody that has an interest to put a letter of interest in. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Anybody on Zoom for public?
No, we have nobody.
So we're going to close public forum and we move for a motion for adjournment.
I move we adjourn the meeting.
I'll second that.
So, been motioned and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.